Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode from No Crypto to No Crypto. I'm your host, the Crypto Coach, Blockchain Wayne. Today we're joined by Justin from Quidli. Justin, man, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, man. I'm really excited to chat with you.
Absolutely, man. Been looking forward to this interview. Quidli, we've been familiar with Quidli for a while here at FIO, and really want to dive in and find out what you guys are doing. What's the latest? Obviously, we've all weathered a pretty serious bear market in the past, and so I want to talk a little bit about that too. But before we jump into Quidli and all the great things you guys are doing there, tell us a little bit about yourself, man. What's your background and how'd you get into working in the space and working with Quidli?
Yeah, for sure. Just to mention, we actually do have .quidli domains via Via. So
Nice.
yeah, I mean, just to give you an idea of how long we've associated with FIO. But yeah, back very quickly to me. I'm Justin. I'm based in France. I've been here since 2013, which is when I actually bought my first Bitcoin.
Hmm.
Essentially, I had been working in TradFi for several years in Asia, doing M&A advisory, and so had been hopping around from like Japan, Korea to Vietnam, and mostly my curiosity into crypto came from just the pain of like cross-border banking. Like I've lived in like so many countries, like properly lived and had to like make a living in several countries, and I mean, back then there weren't as many online cross-border solutions, and so when people talked about Bitcoin, it was super interesting to me. That's pretty much how I got into the crypto space. Uh, to be honest, completely as like a speculator. Like I like the idea that you could like own sovereignly own your own cash, so to speak, and then everything else around it at the time, like Silk Road and stuff like that, it just really piqued my interest as someone who lived kind of globally and was is interested in technology. It was an interesting option to investigate. And then, yeah, then in terms of working into crypto several years later, I would say kept holding, but didn't really care much about everything else going on in the space until like ICOs came around.
Yeah.
Um, remember very much every time I think of FIO, I always remember EOS
Yeah.
back in the day because FIO was one of the few projects that still remain today that took on that EOS build. I still remember, but yeah. The ICO boom, like 2016, 17, really brought my attention back to crypto. Obviously, the speculation side was very interesting, but still, like more and more, it kind of opened my eyes to what else you could build on top of that technology. You know, as like Ethereum and ERC20 with smart contracts was really like making that push. It really made me think about, oh wow, like there could be more than. I mean, obviously the casino is a big part of it, but there could be a lot more to it than that. And that really kind of made me at that time, for someone with my kind of background with tech and finance, it was like I knew I didn't see myself working in anything else cutting edge or frontier like biotech, things like that. I was like, yeah, crypto, decentralized finance, that's definitely where someone with my profile could have a lot more like contribution and participation.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of us come into this space for the speculation, right? That's what draws everybody in.
Sure.
And the ones that stick around long enough realize how much bigger it could be. I think that's what it is.
Oh, for
Um,
sure. Yeah, I never want to. I mean, I always want to be as open as possible with people, right? Like, it is what drew me in. But, like, for a lot of the people that stay, I think you kind of realize, yeah, that's one fun part, but there's tons of, like, new, fascinating, innovative things that you can build on top of this technology.
yeah, it's definitely what drew me in as well, too. Just all the possibilities. And then finally 2018, when that market started going down, I was kind of like, I need to see if this is real. Like I was in 2 years, I kind of had my belief built, but it wasn't solid. And I hit a few conferences, talked to a few people, got a chance to have a conversation with Tim Draper and some others, and I was like, okay, this is here to stay, right? This is something, and I think that's what really built my belief was attending that conference in 2018 when the market's doing this, and I meet all these people that are building. I'm like, okay, this is definitely not just a bubble here and gone, because that was my first cycle, basically, of bull and bear.
Yes,
And
yeah, I would agree. I think that would be technically, because when I bought in 2013, I didn't really do anything with it. There was nothing to do. Like, I didn't want to buy anything off Silk Road.
oh,
Like, so I would say it was the same for me. Like 2017 was when I like re-engaged, and 18 was like, whoa, like your shirts got ripped off like
yeah,
crazy during that time. Yeah, so I would say similarly for me, that's probably. But I don't know. Would you agree that in retrospect, I feel like 18, 19, 20 was a good time to come back in?
oh,
Like
absolutely.
prices got low enough where you didn't have to go through the crazy 5 plus 6 plus years of like waiting for action to come, and like you could re-engage like with old heads as well as new heads. I feel like that was a good era to come back in, to come in if you weren't in before.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely, man. Everybody I know that kind of got in around that area, like obviously, everybody when they get in, they think they're late to the game, right? And that's the lesson I think I try to teach most people. It's like it's even now, it's not late. Yeah, you're not gonna like 10x your money overnight or in the next 6 months, but it's never too late. And that time, looking back, there was a lot of people. I even had there was a few different things I did around then where I convinced a few people I know, friends that were in business, to accept Bitcoin as payment for me. Now, obviously, like me, I was a long term holder. I was trying to convince them. So if I paid them $750 in Bitcoin for a service, then I was going right behind it and buying it right back. But some of those guys have reached out since, and it's like, one guy, he accumulated over 1 Bitcoin from me around that time, because Bitcoin was, I think, around 5 to 7K or whatever it was. And those guys are loving it, when then they thought, oh man, I missed out because it used to be a few dollars and now it's
Yeah,
thousands. And yeah, definitely a good time looking back. And that's what most people don't realize. And it's crazy how many people don't want to buy or scared to buy when it's like that. But I mean, it's probably happened to you too, right? Last week when we hit 100K, everybody was hitting me up like, is it too late? Can I buy now? And I'm like, it's like, what is this? Like, and we laugh at it enough, but it's just human psychology, I guess, that they don't want to buy when there's all that fear in the market. But when it's peaking at a current all-time high, everybody's like, oh, I need to buy, or am I late? What do I need to do?
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. That 1920. Yeah, I think that's when it hit 5K again, right? It dropped as low as that. Was
Yeah.
incredible. Like it just melted people's faces off. But yeah, in retrospect, you're just like, why didn't I pick up more?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. That's the realization, is you never quite have enough. And it's funny, I think about back then, because 2018 was when I started. Like, I realized that the Bitcoin logo is kind of like, people get that, right? If you see this on the street, even if you don't know about crypto, most people recognize the symbol. Just so like, if I'm wearing like a FIO gear and I'm not at a crypto conference, people don't even realize that's crypto or blockchain related, right? So I typically will wear Bitcoin gear when I'm out. And I remember in 2018, I was at a grocery store. The guy bagging the groceries noticed my hat, and he said, Bitcoin, is that still a thing? And I gave him a 60-second elevator pitch on why he needed to look back into it, start accumulating just a little bit. I've never seen that guy again, but I always think, man, and I was at that grocery store over this weekend, and I'm like, man, I wonder if that guy listened to me or not, because if he did, he's probably pretty happy. If he didn't, he's probably
Yeah.
kicking him. Because I think it was right around 5K at that time. I remember thinking that, it was 5K whenever I talked to him.
Well, yeah, yeah. But I mean, it's one of the interesting things about FIO as well, right? Like, there's a lot. One of the things I like about that approach there is, in a way, it's very agnostic, and it kind of acknowledges that. I mean, everyone's going to have their different opinions, right? And like Bitcoiners are different from like altcoiners, blah blah blah. But like, um, I tend to fall on the side of like, there's no single chain. In fact, like, with actual adoption, it's just going to be compatibility across different chains, whatever makes sense for your use cases. And yeah, it's one of the things I've always kind of admired about an ecosystem like FIO, because it's a similar approach that we try to take at Quidli, and I think ultimately it's the approach that will be more user facing, as opposed to like more crypto natives that have like very hard opinions on it's got to be this chain or that chain, or like this
Right.
protocol or that protocol.
Yeah, that's the one thing I try to tell people. It's not a zero sum game, right? It's not
Yeah,
like one chain is going to win out. But that's the mentality, because people think there always needs to be a winner. or you can't have multiple, or this whole concept too that just about everybody that was raised in a single country, they've only known one currency their whole life, right? And so it's just a different mindset to say, okay, there's going to be all these different ones, and no matter which one gets adopted, what we're building is going to work for no matter what. Whether you are, kind of have the belief like we do that the future is going to be multi-chain and cross-functional and all this, or you're a Bitcoin maximalist, feel mixing your Bitcoin easy, all the way down to like you're one of these hardcore XRP army guys. Like, it's like, yeah, it works for that too. We're integrated into some XRP products as well. So anywhere in between. And I think that's where people need to realize it's not this maximalist approach. I guess it's from our competitive nature. We think one has to win out, but it's not a zero sum game.
Yeah, sure.
So let's jump into Quidli, talk about what you guys are doing there. First, let's give the audience kind of an overview of what is Quidli.
Yeah. So there's only like two different ways I explain it. One is like the high level approach for like, crypto nerds and like investors and stuff like that. We call it like a social middle layer for token payments, so that like you can embed, it's basically embedded fintech, but for tokens on token rails instead of like fiat. So in our initial kind of experimentation phase, we've just built a ton of hard-coded integrations into like Discord, for example, Slack, Telegram, where you can do crypto payments, token payments using our bots. I mean, we already see it happening with a ton of normal apps and like chat apps, communication apps like WeChat in China, Kakao Talk in Korea, even WhatsApp for the Indian market. Like more and more, they're integrating payment rails because people want to pay. I mean, social payment is social, and people ultimately want like a single kind of operating system where they can do their communication, their coordination, and even their payments. So that's a kind of investor elevator pitch for Quidli. It's like a social middle layer, but just the way it's been used today, the use cases that we see the most are by like token communities and token organizations to basically P2P tip their tokens in Web2 apps. Like gives a little bit more utility for their tokens outside of like dApp environments, outside of their immediate kind of ecosystems, and kind of like what we talked about like a couple minutes ago. The future, I think, is not in like a dApp differentiation versus like a general app. Like for tokens, the way we believe it needs to be is it needs to be accessible from the apps we're already using, like that. Like forcing people to try to use a dApp solely to access a token, I don't think is a winning strategy, and it hasn't proven to be a winning strategy in the last few years that we've had this growing ecosystem. And so, we're kind of one of the groups where we think that there can be a middle layer, a compromise where Web 2 and Web 3 kind of meet in the middle.
Right. And most of these messaging apps and stuff that you're in or group apps, like they provide the APIs and the input you need to be able to connect.
Exactly.
So why make someone leave there to jump somewhere else, right?
Exactly. We're leveraging open APIs and SDKs. With the hard-coded versions, admittedly, like they're designed more like as a showcase. Like, hey, like it works, and like we've seen, like because we're embedded into these apps that normal people use, like we've created wallets for Ethereum wallets, admittedly, for like almost 1 million users. Now, are all of them active? That's like a different story, but like I think it's a better middle ground to try to expose more people to Web3 than just saying like jump into the deep end of Web3.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the approach we're taking at a step by step level.
Right, and I think people may be listening to this, and you think of, okay, it makes sense for like a token team to incorporate it into their apps, like us. I mean, we have a token tied to our protocol, so we could utilize it within our community. But if someone's listening to this and they have a community, or maybe they even have something like their Web2 company, they don't necessarily have to have a token to jump into this, right? They can jump in and they can pick from a whole host of tokens. Like say they want to do it for community engagement, they could they could set up with you guys, and then they can pick which token they want to get, whether that's Bitcoin, Ethereum, or some meme coin, right? That they want to just maybe give away as a novelty to their community.
Yeah.
For
The novelty aspect was big. At one point, it was actually majority stables like DAI and USDC.
Okay.
But yeah, more and more, it's shifted over to, as more communities are launching their own tokens or issuing their own tokens. Yeah, it's become like, oh, we want that for our token. But you're right. Like we now work with close to 100 different tokens and communities directly. So you could choose, if we've already integrated it, you could choose from those options as well.
Got you. So what are you seeing more traditional cryptocurrency? I guess there's two sides, right? Regular cryptocurrencies are meme coins, right? Are you
Yes.
seeing a lot of coins being utilized within there?
So when we launched it as like just to test the concept, it was just Bitcoin, ETH, and Doge.
Yeah.
It was Bitcoin by far at the beginning, and this was with like largely not crypto native groups. It was just like decentralized, not in the crypto sense, like, you know, distributed teams that needed a way to kind of like tip each other easily. And if you're in like India and you got a colleague in France or the US or something, I'm sure they're not going to want to accept rupees. So like it was Bitcoin initially. We had our first big bump when we introduced stables. Just organically, these use. I mean, obviously, we had to educate them on what a stable coin was and like how they could redeem it, or like, you know, like off ramp it into like fiat to actually make use of that. That was a very long process, but they still grokked that. They understood it, and so stables kind of helped us grow that initial part of our traction. We then, for us, we intuitively built a Discord integration. It was Slack only at first. We built a Discord integration, and that kind of opened us up to a lot of token communities who at first were like, this solution doesn't make sense for us, we're not on Slack, to suddenly like, oh, like this makes sense, can you add our token? And so we kind of shifted our focus to that side of the Web3 ecosystem, I guess, where it was like, we no longer dictated which tokens you use. We were just like, okay, if you're interested, let's work together and we'll integrate yours. And Sophia was one of those early partners that we initially worked with at that time.
Awesome. Yeah, and I think that makes sense because with Slack and stables, it's more of Slack is more of like a business messaging. I don't know many individuals that use Slack for personal use. It's mainly business, right? So that would make sense, right? I'm paying a vendor, I'm paying peer to peer. I've got a Slack group with with a couple of different of our partners, right? So I could see if there was a payment due from one side or the other utilizing Quidli. When I think about, I guess the reason I asked about meme coins is because of that. Like when you go into Discord and Telegram, you got a lot of token communities. But even as like Web2 communities look to maybe engage their communities within Discord or Telegram, they could also incorporate. And that's why I think like there's two different sides of this payment. Like if I'm paying you back for dinner, or we have an invoice that either I have to pay or you have to pay, using Bitcoin or stables and some of the major alts, that makes sense. But I've been a harsh critic for about 99.9% of a lot of the meme coins out there. But I think there is some merit to where meme coins can move to true utility. And we're seeing some try to do that. Doge is longstanding. As much as I've criticized Shiba in the past, I think they're building a lot of stuff. I met some of the people that are building like on their like different tools. But when you look at those, it's more of, if I'm going to reward a community, do they want like 25 to 50 cents to $1 worth of stable? Or would they want some kind of speculation, like for more engagement, where I send them 1 million of this meme coin that may only be worth the same amount, but man, they've got this huge balance, and it's like that same lottery ticket mentality, but the people didn't have to go out and buy it. They just kind of got it by chance. And then they may see, okay, hey, this went up. This was only worth $1 when I got it. Now it's worth 3 or 4. And then they may say, okay, what is this crypto thing? I need to dive in deeper. So I think that could be, it's really a cool tool when I think about it. And it could add a lot more of the, I guess, initial utility, or at least engagement with communities to where, tokens trying to get off the ground, instead of just doing a promotion and giveaway and having people send you their wallet address, you could all do it within within the community. And man, there's even bots they could even partner with, like because there's different leaderboard type bots that you can plug into your Discord or Telegram to tell you who's your most engaged community members,
Yes.
and then boom, you got Quidli to reward them. Yeah.
No, for sure. I would say one thing you said that resonates with us is like the longer term for us is more about the distribution, because I think as more and more tokens become like the mainstream, like it's not the issuance that'll be challenging, and it's certainly not like the markets, like the exchanges. That's pretty playbook by now. But it's like, how do you get that distribution outside of just like trading volume and stuff like that? So that was kind of our focus. But I think you're right. More and more, I think one thing we need to embrace better, but because you said it, I think it resonates well with me as well, is that plugging into like the recognition, kind of the tipping use case has been our strongest, and so kind of like embracing that a bit more, I think is definitely a good direction in my mind. Like that's pretty much how a lot of our communities, our most active communities, are using us.
Yeah. And that was really the initial use case for Doge, right? If you think back in Doge's history, I mean, other than being created as a joke initially, then eventually evolved to, it was fun for tipping. I can send you, 50,000 Doge and it wasn't worth much, but it's funny to think about that, because I know one community that profited very well because they were using Doge long before it went above a penny. It was, much, much, much less, and they were using it to engage the community. And they had quite a healthy healthy wallet once Doge started pumping.
Yeah.
But that was the initial use case. I mean, you could send someone 50,000 Doge, and it may only be worth like 75 cents, but who cares? It's fun. It's almost like people like to see those rewards. That's why they see points. That's why they'll play games where there's really no, they'll play a game where there's really no reward they get out of it, then other than that sense of accomplishment, like, hey, I achieved this and I got this, and nothing they could really ever cash out on. And this gives you another layer to add. So
definitely with meme coins, for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. So anybody here in a meme coin community or behind, add Quidli, get with the Quidli team and use it to engage. Or even if you're a Web2 community, you can make it fun. You can give away, you can do Bitcoin and stables for like major promotions, and outside of that, you could grab any community's token. Because what it would cost, like if somebody grabbed like some of the recently released meme coins that are quote unquote doing okay, right? They could grab 1 billion tokens in some case, or 1 million tokens at least, for probably $50 to $100, or and that could be their marketing budget, and give that away to the community and engage. So it's not just, you don't have to be a token community to do it.
For sure.
But
it gives you I mean, like you said, it still gives you a feeling of skin in the game, but at the same time you're not like losing an arm and a leg to participate, right? Like, and
right.
It's not some token you have to float yourself or anything. There is a market out there that's kind of validating the value of the token, and if, like you said, it's like a lottery ticket, right? If it works, it works, and everyone's even happier. If it doesn't, it's like what's the worst you lost? $50, $100? That's not too bad if that's your marketing budget, right?
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. I think we spend a lot more than that on paid marketing, so why not?
For sure.
Sometimes you can probably get more traction from that than traditional paid marketing.
Absolutely.
Cool. So looking at Quidli, you guys are on Discord, Telegram, Slack, right?
Yeah, our initial was Slack. Our bread and butter is Discord, and a little bit earlier this year, we introduced Telegram. So Discord has been our main bread and butter, like I said. But we have like a Twitter, or an X workflow, as well as a GitHub integration. In terms of just there's like marketing and community stuff. But with GitHub, DevRel, like a lot of developer, like to incentivize developer contributions or code reviews, things like that. We saw that was happening, so we added a GitHub integration.
Right.
And most recently, probably our fastest growing one now is our Farcaster integration. I don't know if you're aware of the Warpcast Farcaster, where it's another decentralized social protocol. There's enough of a network there where and a lot of people launching tokens there, where we saw kind of like an interesting network effect, where we could do drops across that network as well. So that's kind of our suite of integrations at the moment.
Yeah. We have an account on Warpcast or Forecaster, so we're gonna have to check that out. You mentioned X as well too, so I think that's probably where our biggest audience is. So we're gonna have to, personally, on a side note, as FIO, we're gonna have to jump in and try those out, run some promotions with it, check it out. But that'll be good. Yeah, have you seen the Clanker bot on Forecaster? Have you seen that?
Okay. So you're definitely familiar with Forecast.
Yeah, yeah,
If you're following Clanker stuff. Yeah, for sure. It was one of actually, our Farcaster integration is our first truly decentralized, quote unquote, product.
Mhm.
And it was in fact Clanker that convinced us to open up our main suite, like Discord. We're still quite walled garden around it, but the Farcaster one, just because of the velocity of how many Clanker tokens have been launched,
Tell me about it.
we opened up you can just add tokens via contract address now, and so it just goes to show you how, like, when markets are hot, people are just launching
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, for those of you listening may not be familiar with, so Justin did a good job of explaining what Forecaster is, but within there, it's Clankerbot, to where if you create a particular post, tagging Clankerbot in a way, it'll basically launch a token for you, right? It'll launch a token, it'll create one-sided liquidity, get it to start trading,
Yes.
and just fully just fully out there and launched, and so it's an interesting experiment to see how people go with it.
It's like pump.fun with the social layer built in, so you don't have to.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah,
Without the weird live streaming.
exactly. That's true.
Let's pump that fun at the end because it was getting kind of crazy.
Yeah. So no, there's a few out there now on Farcaster, not just Clanker. There's one this past week, Larry, that also, like you said, it starts the trading, and I think with Larry they try to make it more fair launch with like a window
Oh,
to buy into. The initial buy is like kind of
gotcha.
capped or something like that. But yeah, I mean, it just goes to show you that I don't think the tokens, whether you like them or not, I don't know if the token genie will go back in the bottle. So for us,
Yeah.
we're just absolutely convinced that distribution is like the key for a lot of these tokens. Like, will all of them survive? I don't know, but that for
Yeah.
us, that's not the question. The question is, how can we
Right.
expand distribution and eventually, because of that, utility for these tokens.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, it could some of them can last, most of them probably won't, but it's not for any one person to decide. It's the market, and people say, "Oh, this is a problem in crypto," but you know what? I've been a long time follower of Andreas Antonopoulos, and he said this, I don't know, 8, 9 years ago, that one day there'll be millions of tokens out there. You'll have kids in elementary school creating their own popularity tokens. I mean, it was pretty much predicted just because of the way the technology is. Like, it's
Yes.
not gated to where, oh, you have to be certified to do this. Anybody can do it. The market's going to decide, and then I
No, I
think when
100% agree. Like when we started Quidli, it was under the idea. It wasn't actually tokens. I mean, what would you call it? It wasn't necessarily fungible tokens that we were attacking. We were trying to do similar concept with security tokens, which I guess we call RWAs now.
yeah,
And we just thought like it was, and in a way, I'm still convinced that like actual assets like securities have probably the best actual real world use case for
mm,
tokens, but
yeah,
it's just an entirely different set of frictions that exist to kind of porting them into the token world. And I think, in a way, the culture, not just crypto culture, but like digital culture, internet culture, has kind of shifted in the past 10 years. Now I kind of think, um, like what you're saying, it might just be tokens that completely take the whole thing over. Like it doesn't matter if it's stock in Apple or if it's your kid's school's popularity contest token. Like if it's tokenizable, it's going to be an asset, and it's going to be kind of tradable and like usable like somewhere. And that it might be kind of a bit hyper capitalist, but at the same time, like the way I see social media evolving so fast and rapid, it wouldn't surprise me anymore, if that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely. And I think it just goes to show how early we are too, right? I mean, this is, you know, a lot of things, even things that people have heard in terms of the tech in this that they think is dead is going to come back.
Yeah, particularly with blockchain, I think more often than not, to borrow from, I think it's Game of Thrones, like what is dead may never die. I think things will always come back when you least expect it.
Absolutely. Cool. So one last technical question about Quidli before we wrap up. I remember seeing something on the website when I was looking into, because I always, like before a podcast, even though I know who you guys were, familiar with it, like I always want to see, is there anything I missed in terms of update? And I remember seeing something about use it in any browser. How does that work with a browser? Is it like a browser plugin or something?
No, so like the initial launch of Quidli was just like a web app. It wasn't even an integration, and we built it kind of like, think of it as a sex, like a centralized exchange, except not for exchanging, just for like sending, kind of like early, in a way, kind of like early earn.com or something. And so, yeah, people could just create their organizations in the app through our front end and send tokens to other people. But I think what for us was the start of our flywheel was we kind of realized it was very social, and so just doing it through the web app kind of wasn't enough. There needed to be like a place where people were convening, communicating, coordinating with each other. And so that's why we took the Slack hypothesis, and that I think for us more and more we think that embedded part of that of the process is the big flywheel, the real flywheel. Once like transactions are more naturally a part of our like digital communications, like that's huge. I think people are already doing, entrepreneurs are already doing that with WhatsApp, with WeChat, and more it's going to be a normal part of our lives to kind of work together and transact with each other in the same space. But I'm sure you will agree with me. I think I won't presume, but I think you will agree with me. It's probably going to be a lot more interesting and innovative when we do it on token rails as opposed to trying to do that with like existing TradFi fiat rails.
Yeah, absolutely. Because a lot of times you're limited within one country, and we know with digital, we're all global citizens, right? So it doesn't matter if I'm, communicating with somebody next door or somebody across the world. It could be the same process, man. You also brought back. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I mean, I think that's a really interesting point because I think you also mentioned it a little bit earlier. It's really surprising how many people don't think that, but then the people who do know that understand how much of a pain it is. I guess it just really depends on like if you've spent time outside of your country, if you've spent time like, but I mean, it's just going to be inevitable at some point because more and more of those walls are coming down, whether you like it or not, and you're going to be forced to interact with someone somewhere else. And digital just makes it hyper fast, and for sure, the TradFi rails are not built for that. It's built to make the difference. I guess is TradFi is built with that friction deliberately, whereas like crypto is meant to just make that as seamless and as open as possible.
Yeah, and the better tech's eventually going to win out, which is what we're seeing. Cool. So, Justin, as we wrap up, man, can you tell everybody where they can find out more about Quidli and also test it out?
Yeah, for sure. You can check it out directly on our homepage, our webpage, quid.li. You can also find us on Twitter. Handle is Quidli Protocol. Likewise, on Warpcast as well. I'm probably more active there, so you can find me. My handle is my surname ahn.eth. Just reach out to us on any of our socials or anything, and happy to chat if you have questions or want more information.
Awesome. If you listen this long, I'm sure we're going to run some kind of promotion from FIO utilizing Quidli, so make sure to check that out. All the links he just mentioned and the details of the promotion are in the description below. Cool. All right, Justin, man, it's been a pleasure having you on. Definitely great to find out more what's going on with you guys and with Quidli. I would challenge anybody and everybody to check it out. There's so many use cases, from friends paying each other back to business payments, all the way to engaging community and probably so much more, right? I'm not doing a good job of explaining everything, but there's so many different possibilities here. So make sure to check it out.
No, appreciate you having me on, man.
Awesome. Well, thanks everybody for listening. Thanks, Justin, again for joining us, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Take care, everybody.
Cheers.